My business partner Marcus told everyone I had a breakdown. He did it carefully. He did it kindly, even, that was the genius of it. He never said anything cruel. He would lower his voice, look concerned, and tell our employees, our clients, our investors, that he was worried about Rebecca. That I had been under a lot of strain. That he was trying to support me through a difficult time. There was no difficult time. I had not had a breakdown. But by the time I understood what Marcus was doing, the story had already taken hold, and a story, once it takes hold, is almost impossible to kill with the truth. So I did something Marcus never expected. I let him believe he had won. For 8 months, I let Marcus believe he had pushed me out, taken control of the company we had built together, and gotten away with it. And during those 8 months, I documented everything he did. This is the story of how I got my company back. Chapter 1, The Beginning. My name is Rebecca. 11 years ago, I co-founded a company with a man named Marcus. We had met working at a larger firm, both of us frustrated, both of us certain we could build something better. And for a long time, we did. I want to describe Marcus fairly. He was brilliant in the ways that get noticed, charismatic in meetings, magnetic with clients, the kind of person who could walk into a room of skeptical investors and walk out with a check. People liked Marcus immediately and intensely. I was different. I was the one who built the actual machine. The operations, the systems, the financial structure, the careful unglamorous work of making a company function day after day. If Marcus was the face, I was the spine. For 8 years, this division worked. Marcus brought in the business, I made sure we could deliver it. We were, genuinely, a good team. I trusted him. I want to be honest about that, I trusted Marcus completely, for 8 years, and that trust was not foolish. It was earned, over time, by a man who I believed shared my values. I want to tell you about the early days, because it makes what came later harder to understand, and also more important to tell. When Marcus and I started the company, we had almost nothing. We worked out of a tiny rented office with a heater that barely functioned. We ate cheap takeout at our desks at midnight. We made promises to each other in those early days, that we would build something we could be proud of, that we would always be straight with each other, that whatever happened, we were partners in the truest sense. I remember a specific night in the first year. We had just lost a major client, and we genuinely did not know if the company would survive the month. Marcus and I sat in that cold little office and we talked for hours. And Marcus said to me, "Rebecca, whatever happens, I will never let you face anything alone. We're in this together." That's the whole point. I believed him. And for 8 years, he was true to that. Through every crisis, every difficult decision, every close call, Marcus and I faced it together. That is why what happened later was so disorienting. It was not that I had trusted a stranger who turned out to be untrustworthy. It was that I had trusted a man who had genuinely earned that trust over the better part of a decade, and then watched him become someone else when enough money entered the picture. People change. Or perhaps people simply reveal, under the right pressure, who they always were. I still do not know which is true of Marcus. I am not sure it matters. What I know is that around year 9, something shifted. Our company became genuinely valuable. We had grown to about 60 employees. We had significant clients, real revenue, and, this is the part that mattered, we began to attract acquisition interest. Larger companies started to circle, asking whether we might be for sale. And as the company became more valuable, Marcus began to change. He started making decisions without consulting me. He started having meetings I was not invited to. He started, in subtle ways, building relationships with our investors and board members that excluded me. I noticed. But I told myself it was nothing. I told myself Marcus was just being Marcus, ambitious, energetic, sometimes thoughtless. I told myself that 8 years of partnership did not evaporate because a man scheduled a few meetings without me. I remembered that cold office, that promise, the man who had said he would never let me face anything alone. I was wrong. What I was watching was the beginning of a plan. Chapter 2: The Betrayal. The breakdown story started small. The first time I heard about it was from our head of operations, a thoughtful woman named Priya who had worked with me for 6 years and whom I trusted completely. Priya came into my office one afternoon, closed the door, and said, "Rebecca, can I ask you something? Are you okay?" I said, "Of course." "Why?" Priya hesitated. Then she said, "Marcus has been telling some of us that you've been struggling. That you've been under a lot of stress. He said it gently, like he was worried about you. But it's been a few times now, with different people. And it doesn't match what I see. You seem completely fine to me. So I wanted to check." I sat very still. I said, "What exactly has Marcus been saying?" Priya told me. Over the previous few weeks, Marcus had been quietly telling people, always in a tone of deep concern, always framed as support, that I had been not myself. That I was overwhelmed. That he was carrying more of the load lately to take pressure off me. That he was worried about my health. None of it was true. But I could see immediately how clever it was. Marcus was not attacking me. If he had attacked me, I could have defended myself. Instead, Marcus was expressing concern for me, and concern is almost impossible to fight. If I responded angrily, I would seem unstable, which proved his point. If I seemed stressed by the accusation, that proved his point too. The story was self-reinforcing. The very act of objecting to it became evidence for it. I understood, sitting in my office with Priya, that Marcus was laying the groundwork to push me out. A partner who is having a breakdown is a partner who can be eased out of leadership for her own good. A partner who is overwhelmed can be relieved of responsibilities. A partner whose judgment is in question can have her authority quietly transferred to the concerned, steady, reliable Marcus, who is only doing what is best for everyone. And if all of this happened right before an acquisition, when the company was about to be sold for a great deal of money, then the partner who had been eased out would find her position, and her share of the proceeds, dramatically weakened. I saw the whole shape of it in an instant. And I made a decision that I believe saved my company and my future. I decided not to react. Chapter 3: The Decision. Here's what most people would have done, and what Marcus was counting on me doing. Most people, upon discovering that their partner was spreading a false story about their mental health, would confront him. Would storm into his office. Would demand he stop. Would call a board meeting to clear their name. And every one of those actions would have played directly into Marcus's hands. Because every one of them would have looked exactly like the behavior of an unstable person reacting badly to a concerned partner. Marcus had built a trap where my natural, justified, human reaction would be used as proof of his lie. So I did not react. Instead, I thanked Priya for telling me. I asked her to keep what she had noticed to herself for now. And then I went home and I thought, carefully and coldly, about what was actually happening and what I actually needed to do. What I needed was not to win an argument. Arguments were Marcus's territory. What I needed was to understand exactly what Marcus was doing, and to be able to prove it. Because here is what I understood, with my operational mind, Marcus was not just telling a story. To push me out and weaken my position before an acquisition, Marcus would have to take actual actions. He would have to move money, restructure agreements, build documentation, create a paper trail that justified reducing my role. And actions leave traces. A story is hard to disprove. But the actions taken to support that story, those can be documented. Those can be exposed. So I made my plan. I would appear to accept my diminished role. I would seem to step back, just as Marcus wanted. I would let Marcus believe that his story was working, that I was fading, that he was winning. And while Marcus believed I was defeated, I would document every single thing he did. I called a lawyer. Her name was Eleanor Walsh, and she specialized in exactly this kind of partnership dispute. I told her everything. And Eleanor Walsh said something that became my guiding principle for the next 8 months. She said, "Rebecca, the worst thing you can do right now is let him know you're watching. Right now, he thinks he's winning, which means he's going to keep acting. And every action he takes while he thinks he's safe is evidence you can use later. Your silence is the most powerful weapon you have. Don't waste it by reacting." I did not waste it. Chapter 4: The Evidence. For 8 months, I played a part. I want to be honest about how hard it was. Every day, I went into the company I had built and I watched Marcus slowly strip away my authority while pretending to protect me. I sat in meetings where my responsibilities were temporarily reassigned. I watched Marcus look at me with performed concern and say things like, "We just want to make sure you're not overwhelmed, Rebecca." I smiled. I thanked him. I said I appreciated everyone's support. And I documented everything. Because I had built the company's operational systems, I had legitimate access to a great deal. I was not hacking anything, I was not doing anything improper. I was simply, as a founder and partner, paying attention to the records I had every right to see. I documented the meetings Marcus held without me, and what was decided in them. I documented the financial movements, and this is where it got interesting. Because Marcus, while telling everyone he was selflessly carrying extra weight to protect me, was also quietly restructuring certain financial arrangements in ways that would benefit him enormously in an acquisition. He was redirecting certain accounts. He was adjusting how equity and proceeds would be distributed. He was building a structure where, when the company sold, he would receive a far larger share than our partnership agreement entitled him to, and where my reduced role would be used to justify reducing my share. I documented his communications with the investors and board members, the relationships he had been quietly building to isolate me. And then I found the thing that broke it open. Our assistant, a sharp young woman named Jen, had been with the company for 3 years. Jen scheduled Marcus's meetings, managed his calendar, and saw a great deal. Jen had grown uncomfortable. She had noticed the pattern of meetings I was excluded from, and she had overheard enough to be uneasy. One afternoon, Jen came to me, much as Priya had, and quietly said, "Rebecca, I don't know if I should say this, but I don't think what's happening to you is fair. And I have copies of things. The meeting notes. The schedules. If you ever need them." I had 2 witnesses now. Priya, who had heard Marcus spreading the breakdown story, and Jen, who had documentation of the secret meetings. Combined with the financial records I had been quietly compiling, and the partnership agreement that Marcus was violating, I had something Marcus had never imagined I would have. I had proof. Not a story. Not my word against his. Proof, financial, documentary, and witnessed. I brought all of it to Eleanor Walsh. She went through it for a long time. And then she looked up and said, "Rebecca, he thought he was pushing out a woman having a breakdown. What he was actually doing was committing 8 months of documented misconduct in front of a founder who was recording all of it. When are you ready to end this?" I said, "When the acquisition offer is final. Let him think he's won right up until the last moment." Eleanor Walsh smiled. She said, "You're a dangerous woman, Rebecca. He has no idea." Chapter 5: The Justice. The acquisition offer became final on a Thursday. It was a very large number. Marcus had spent 8 months positioning himself to capture a disproportionate share of it, while my breakdown justified shrinking mine. He believed, on that Thursday, that he had won completely. He had pushed me to the margins. The company was about to sell. He was about to become very wealthy at my expense. that was the day I stopped playing the part. Eleanor Walsh delivered our filing to Marcus and the board simultaneously, a complete, documented account of everything Marcus had done over the previous 8 months. The false breakdown narrative, contradicted by witness statements from Priya. The secret meetings, documented by Jen. The financial restructuring designed to violate our partnership agreement and steal my share, laid out in undeniable detail. And alongside it, a clear legal demand, that Marcus's misconduct be addressed, that the partnership agreement be enforced as written, and that any attempt to distribute the acquisition proceeds according to Marcus's secret restructuring be blocked. I was told that Marcus, reading the filing, went completely white. He had spent 8 months believing he was managing a fragile, defeated woman. He had let his guard down entirely, because he believed there was no one watching. And in that comfort, he had created a trail of misconduct so thorough, so well documented, that there was simply no story he could tell to escape it. The board, confronted with the evidence, turned on Marcus immediately. Board members do not like discovering that a co-founder has been deceiving them and exposing the company to enormous legal liability right before an acquisition. Marcus's carefully built relationships evaporated the moment those board members realized he had made them complicit in something indefensible. The acquisition went forward, but on entirely different terms. My full share, as our original partnership agreement specified, was restored and protected. Marcus's attempt to capture a disproportionate share collapsed. And Marcus himself, his conduct now a matter of formal record, lost the standing he had spent 8 months building. He did not become the wealthy, victorious partner he had imagined. He left the process diminished, exposed, and far poorer than he had planned. I want to tell you about the last time I saw Marcus. It was after everything was settled. We passed in the lobby of the building where we had built our company together for 11 years. He looked at me, and for the first time in our entire partnership, he had nothing to say. No charming line. No performed concern. Nothing. I said only one thing to him. I said, "You told everyone I was the one falling apart. You should have been watching yourself." And I walked out. I want to say something to anyone listening who is in a situation where someone more charming, more political, more skilled at manipulation is rewriting the story of who you are. Do not fight them on their ground. If you try to out-argue a master manipulator, you will lose, because manipulation is their craft, not yours. If you react the way they expect, with anger, with hurt, with public objection, you will hand them the very proof they need. Instead, go quiet. Go cold. And go to work documenting what is actually happening. Manipulators rely on you reacting. Your silence terrifies them, even when they do not know to be terrified, because while they are busy performing, you are busy building the case that performance cannot survive. Marcus brought a story. I brought 8 months of evidence. The evidence won. It almost always does, when you are patient enough to let them keep talking while you keep records. Thank you for being here for this story. New story every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you know someone who is being pushed out by someone they trusted, send this to them. They need to know that going quiet is not the same as giving up. I will see you in the next one. There is more to this story, and it is the part one find hardest to talk about. I want to tell you what those 8 months cost me. People hear this story and they focus on the clever strategy, the patient documentation, the silence as a weapon, the satisfying collapse of Marcus's scheme. And all of that is true. But I do not want to make it sound easy or painless, because it was neither. For 8 months, I went to work every day and allowed people I cared about to believe I was falling apart. That was the hardest part. Not Marcus. I stopped caring what Marcus thought of me the moment I understood what he was doing. But there were people at that company I genuinely loved. People I had hired, mentored, worked beside for years. And Marcus's story meant that some of them looked at me with pity. With concern. With the careful, slightly distant kindness people show someone they believe is unwell. I could have told them the truth. Some days I desperately wanted to. I wanted to grab Priya, grab the people I trusted, and say, "This is a lie, he's trying to steal the company, please believe me." But I could not. Because the moment I started telling people, the moment it became Rebecca's story versus Marcus's story, I would lose the one advantage I had. The information would get back to Marcus. He would know I was watching. He would stop acting, start hiding, and the trail would go cold. So I carried it alone. I want to tell you about a specific night, about 5 months in. I was sitting at home, and I had just spent the day watching Marcus run a meeting that, a year earlier, I would have led. He had been gracious about it, in his performed way. He had said, in front of everyone, "I just want to take this off Rebecca's plate so she can focus on getting better." Getting better. As though I were ill. I came home that night and I sat at my kitchen table and I cried. Not because I doubted my plan, I knew my plan was working. I cried because I was so tired of being alone with the truth. I was tired of smiling while people pitied me. I was tired of letting a man who was robbing me believe that he was the strong, stable, generous one. I called Eleanor Walsh the next morning. I told her I did not know if I could keep doing it. Eleanor Walsh listened. And then she said something I have thought about many times since. She said, "Rebecca, what you're feeling right now, that loneliness, that exhaustion, that's the price of the strategy. I won't pretend it isn't real. But I want you to understand something. Marcus is comfortable right now. He's sleeping well. He thinks he's won. And every comfortable, confident day he has is a day he keeps building the case against himself. Your suffering right now is not weakness. It's the cost of the trap working. Can you hold on a little longer?" I held on. And I want to tell anyone listening who is in the middle of a long, lonely, patient fight, sometimes the strategy that works is also the strategy that hurts the most. Sometimes being right means being alone with the truth for a long time before anyone else can see it. That loneliness is not a sign you are doing the wrong thing. Sometimes it is the price of doing exactly the right thing. I want to tell you, finally, about what happened to the people who stood by me. Priya, who first warned me about the breakdown story, became my second in command after everything settled. When the dust cleared and the truth came out, she told me that she had never fully believed Marcus's story, that something about it had always felt wrong to her, that I had never once seemed unwell to her in all the years we had worked together. Her instinct to come and check on me, rather than simply accepting Marcus's narrative, was the first crack in his entire scheme. Jen, the assistant who had quietly kept copies of everything, I promoted and mentored. She told me later that she had been afraid to come to me, afraid that she would be seen as disloyal to Marcus, afraid of getting involved. But she had decided that what was happening was wrong, and that staying silent would make her part of it. Her courage in coming forward provided some of the most important evidence in the entire case. I think about that often. Marcus's entire scheme depended on people accepting his story without question. And it was undone by two women who trusted their own perception over a charming man's narrative, who looked at what they were being told, compared it to what they actually saw, and chose to believe their own eyes. That is the other lesson of this story, beyond the documentation and the patience. Trust the people who check on you. Trust the people who, when everyone else is accepting a convenient story, quietly come to you and ask, "Are you okay? Is this true?" Because those people, the ones who refuse to accept a narrative just because it is delivered confidently, those are the people who will save you. Priya saved me by asking a question. Jen saved me by keeping records of her own. And I saved myself by refusing to react, refusing to perform, and trusting that the truth, patiently documented, would eventually become impossible to deny. The company I built is mine again. It thrives. The people who stood by me thrive within it. And Marcus is a cautionary tale that I do not think about very often anymore. He told everyone I was the one falling apart. He was so busy telling that story that he never noticed the woman quietly writing down everything he did. Thank you for listening to all of it.